Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 309 of the current situation, and it's all about whether the country locks down or not as the health situation here in Spain worsens on a daily basis, and the country is struggling to handle the third wave of the coronavirus, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your name here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news, and to lockdown or not lockdown, that is the question here in Spain at the moment. Various autonomous communities want to bring in stricter measures to confine the population, but the central government has ruled out for now a complete lockdown of the country. As we can see here, the health department rules out total confinement, but opens to extend the curfew. Castilla y León has been applying the restriction on mobility from 8 in the afternoon, despite the fact that the government insists that it does not have legal coverage. So a total confinement or complete lockdown ruled out by the health department here in Spain for the time being, but they are open to the autonomous communities extending the hours of curfews, but not just yet. The health minister, Mr. Illa, in an interview with the newspaper El País that was published today, has said that the autonomies here in Spain can now decree what other countries call confinement. The Minister of Health and candidate of the PSC in Catalonia defends that the communities have sufficient legal tools to defeat the third wave. On the subject of confinements, the newspaper asked the question. More and more autonomies are asking for it, even asking the population to confine itself. Why do they insist on ruling it out if it can become inevitable as hospitalizations grow? And the health minister replied, the state of alarm has worked because it gives communities the tools to restrict mobility in their territories with perimeter closures, night mobility restrictions and assembly. Each community can decide whether to close commercial or leisure sectors. They already have the legal tools to bend the curve, and that in practice is what other countries call confinement, for example in Portugal, and something similar happens in Germany. With the data we now have, it is not necessary to go further. So the central government there and the health ministry sticking to their guns, leaving the management of the coronavirus pandemic here in Spain in the hands of the autonomous communities. And according to the health minister, the autonomous communities have the legal tools necessary in order to bend the curve. So what are the autonomous communities here in Spain doing to bend the curve? Let's have a look firstly here at Castilla y León, and we can see here that they have decided to start their curfew at 8 p.m. to stop the coronavirus, but without fines. Castilla y León opens this Saturday the advance of the curfew at 8 p.m. and the government delegate, Javier Izquierdo, has announced that there will be no fines between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. However, this new measure by Castilla y León might be short-lived as the government has appealed to the justice system the curfew at 8 p.m. in Castilla y León. The government has taken the measure to the Supreme Court considering that it infringes the provisions of the decree of the state of alarm, which sets the curfew between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. The dispute between the autonomous communities and the central government to tighten the measures to face the pandemic is experiencing a new chapter and has already jumped into the judicial sphere. Castilla y León decided yesterday to impose a curfew in its community at 8 p.m, an hour that was not endorsed by the health department based on the fact that the decree only allows curfews from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. The new schedule started yesterday in this region. The central government has decided to take this measure to court to stop it. So there we go. That just goes to show how confusing the situation is here in Spain at the moment. Castilla y León decides to get on the front foot to try to get the health situation under control and brings the hours of the curfew forward to 8 p.m, but the central government doesn't want that and is going to take them to court. So I don't know what is going on in this country at the moment. The health minister, as we saw, said that the autonomous communities have the tools necessary to bend the curve, but when they start to use these tools, the central government tries to stop them. Andalusia is another autonomous community that has announced new measures in order to get the health situation under control, and we can see here that they have announced more confinements, restriction of hours and reduction of mobility. The new measures in Andalusia include the following restrictions. Andalusia maintains the perimeter closure. You can only enter or leave with just cause. Perimeter closure of all provinces. The perimeter confinement of municipalities is decreed with a rate higher than 500 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. These data currently include 219 municipalities in Andalusia. Commerce and hotels must close at 6 p.m. In municipalities with a rate higher than 1,000 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, 91 localities currently, the hotel industry and non-essential commerce must remain closed. Gatherings are limited to 4 people, including those that take place in the hospitality industry. And in addition to these generic measures, the president of the junta has announced that Andalusia will officially ask the government of Spain to advance the curfew to 8 p.m. and the possibility of ordering home confinement wherever the authorities see fit. So the president of Andalusia going to officially ask for the curfew to be brought forward to 8 p.m. Good luck with that. Now let's have a look at the health situation here in Spain by looking at a map of the country and various autonomous communities. We'll start with a map of the country, and we can see that the risk level is high. The total amount of cases now over the 2.2 million mark. The accumulated incidence rate countrywide in the last 14 days now sitting at 575. There have been 828 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 19,657 COVID patients hospitalised around the country, and there are 2,953 COVID patients in ICUs, which is just under 30% of all ICUs in Spain. We'll have a look here now at Murcia. We can see that the risk level there surprisingly is medium, given that the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days in Murcia is now at 889. There have been 28 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days in Murcia, and there are currently 640 patients hospitalised, and there are 99 COVID patients in ICUs, which is just over 21% of all ICUs in the region of Murcia. The Valencian community there, the risk level is extreme, and we can see that their accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days is less than Murcia and is at 760. There have been 211 COVID-related deaths in the Valencian community in the last 7 days. And there are currently 3,614 people hospitalised in the Valencian community with COVID, and there are 540 COVID patients in ICUs in Valencia, which is just over 48% of all ICUs in that particular autonomous community. So a bit of inconsistency there when it comes to the risk level in each autonomous community. Now, as we all know, this pandemic has been terrible for the economy here in Spain. 2020 was one of the worst years ever, and 2021 hasn't started off much better either, especially when it comes to small and medium companies and the self-employed. However, big companies have been able to withstand the crisis better, and they created 85,000 jobs in the year of the pandemic. Recessions always affect large companies less, and the best example is the behaviour of employment in 2020. The furlough schemes helped to minimise the blow and stimulate the recovery. And if we have a look at this graph with the headline "A Heterogeneous Evolution," we can see the variation of employment in 2020 with regard to the size of companies. We can see here small companies, 1 to 2 workers, 3 to 5 workers, 6 to 9 workers, 10 to 49 workers, 50 to 249 workers, and 250 to 500 workers all suffered heavy losses when it comes to employment. However, companies with more than 500 workers, as we can see here, were able to create close to 85,000 jobs. So there we go. So much for looking after the backbone of a country's economy, small and medium companies and the self-employed, with huge numbers of people suffering job losses in that type of company. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Tracy. Hi Stuart, here in England almost everything is shut now. My local town is a ghost town. I'm amazed the bars are opened and people are allowed to mix. It's all click and collect with distance here. Good format, bit of both, keep being you. Regards, Tracy. Yeah, Tracy, thanks for the comment. A lot of people are amazed that bars and restaurants are still open in some parts of Spain, especially the autonomous community of Madrid, which is where I am. Bars and restaurants are open until 10 p.m. However, in other places around the country that is not the case. It depends where you are. As I mentioned yesterday, there are 17 different ways to handle this situation, 17 different sets of rules and regulations. Some places are closing down at 5, some places are closing down earlier, some places are not open at all. So it depends where you are. And to be honest, here in Spain, it seems like nobody knows exactly what to do anymore. All of the governments around Spain seem to be doing their own thing. Nobody seems to be on the same page. The central government is stepping back, allowing this to happen, and time will tell which of the methods used proves to be the most successful. One here from Chrissy. In Salar, our village near Granada, curfew 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Bars closed at 6 p.m, only 4 together. Only stay in municipality and stay in Granada province. Yeah, Chrissy, thanks for the comment, and that just highlights what I just said. Different rules and regulations depending on where you are. In Granada, bars closing at 6 p.m, you're not allowed to leave your municipality, and as we saw before, depending on the health situation in different parts of Andalusia, there's different rules and regulations in place. I thought the lockdown last year and all of the rules that we had were confusing, but this is taking it to a whole new level. One here from John. Hi Stuart, I enjoy your videos. They give us a lot of information as to what is going on in Spain. Regarding a full lockdown in Spain, I don't think it will happen because the Spanish government would have to pay all workers a furlough type of payment to everyone. This they would be most reluctant to do as Spain cannot afford it. Keep up the good work. John M. from the UK. Yeah, John, thanks for the comment. This debate about the full lockdown has been going on for quite a while now. I remember back in August, September, people were talking about it, that Spain was going to have another full lockdown. It didn't happen. It hasn't happened yet. And as we can see, the government is saying on almost a daily basis that it is not going to happen. Is money the issue? Is there enough money for more furlough schemes? I don't know. I imagine that that is one of the key factors as to why the government refuses to lock down the whole country. They're trying to keep people working. But I imagine that another one of the reasons is that full lockdowns are not very popular and the central government doesn't want to be unpopular like it was last year, and they would prefer the 17 autonomous communities to handle the situation and therefore pass the problems and complaints onto those regional politicians. One here from Georgia. Does anyone know whether I'll have difficulty moving back to Spain in around a year? I left due to lack of work back in October and hope to one day move back. I have been a resident since I was 7, now 23, and just thinking that maybe with Brexit I may have an issue moving back permanently after being away so long. I still have my residencia. Yeah, Georgia, thanks for the comment. I'm not 100% sure about your particular situation. All I know is that when I renew my residency, they look at my passport to see how much time I have spent in the country and out of the country, and there is a maximum amount of time that I can spend out of Spain in order to get that residency renewed. I think it's 1 year total in a 5-year period. So I, for example, couldn't spend 6 months in Australia, 6 months in Spain if I wanted to get my residency renewed at the end of that 5 years. So if I were you, I would look into the situation because you wouldn't want to lose your residency here in Spain. But as I said, things might have changed since the UK left the European Union. So check it out. One here from Wendy. I really like your new format and when you read out the headlines and information in Spanish, each time you explain in English too. Listening to you will help us all with our pronunciation and comprehension. Many thanks, Stuart, for keeping us informed and maintaining our interest until we can return. Yeah, Wendy, thanks for the comment and good to see that you like the new format where I read out news in Spanish and also translate it at the same time. I have been trying out that new format over the last couple of days and I think I'm going to stick with it for the time being. And also good to see that I'm helping you with your pronunciation and comprehension of the Spanish language. To be honest, Spanish is not a difficult language to pronounce because it's phonetic. As long as you remember the rules and the different sounds, you should be okay. Unlike English pronunciation, which can be extremely difficult for learners of English to get their head around. And I'm happy to be keeping people informed of what's going on here in Spain until you can return one day. I'm sure that there are lots of people out there dying to get back to Spain, and hopefully, as I have been saying over the last few months, we can get this health situation under control and people can start coming back to a country like Spain and enjoying everything that it has to offer. And finally, one here from Barry. You're lucky to be able to get your haircut, Stuart. Here in the Netherlands, they have been closed since just before Christmas and probably won't open again until March. Yeah, Barry, thanks for the comment, and you're right. We are lucky to be able to get a haircut here in Spain, or at least here in Madrid. I'm not sure whether it's the same in other autonomous communities where the hairdressers are still open, or whether they are considered essential businesses or not. It's all a bit confusing for me at the moment here in Spain. Different things happening in different parts of the country, as I have mentioned on various occasions in recent videos. Not really sure what's happening even in the neighbouring autonomous community. But I decided to get my haircut because it was getting a little bit long and out of control, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen in coming weeks, whether places like hairdressers are going to be closed again. So better to get it out of the way while it's still possible, because I'm not really a fan of cutting my own hair and it's just easier to get somebody else to do it for me. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked, a thumbs down if you didn't. I will see you in the next one. Hasta luego.